Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill will have 11 and a half minutes remaining for her speech when the House next resumes debate on this question, and of course the usual 10 minutes for questions and comments. But now, nous allons proceed.
Now we will proceed to member statements. The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, April 17th, 1982 is a dark day in the history of Quebec. 35 years ago, Ottawa repatriated the Constitution in what the British consul of the time, John Ford, called an attempted coup d'etat with the aim of changing the balance of powers in Confederation. The goal was to weaken Quebec, to reduce our ability to make our own choices in society, starting with our ability to defend the French language. All governments in Quebec have refused to sign Trudeau's constitution because all these governments came to the same conclusion, that this constitution, negotiated behind Quebecers' backs, was bad for our nation. Mr. Speaker, je me souviens. The Bloc Québécois remembers too. There's nothing else to expect from Canada except a betrayal and attempts to weaken our ability to make our own decisions. 35 years later, the repatriation of the Constitution is a failure, and the independence movement in Quebec is still standing.
Leafs are back. We have a strong, young, and exciting team with a great future ahead. You can feel the love for this team, Mr. Speaker, but you can also wear it. Yes, it's an idea that started in a beer league dressing room on that fateful day when our Maple Leafs hired the best coach in hockey. Jake Mednick and Tommy McColl, two childhood friends, teammates, and diehard Leafs fans from Beaches, East York, with an entrepreneurial spirit, put Mike Babcock's stern face on a pair of socks. And Bab Socks was born. A cartoon face on a pair of socks has never been so serious. Made by fans, for fans. It's a great way to support our team, and it's a great way to support KMH. So tonight, pull up your Bab Socks, become a Babs Bud. It's game day, Mr. Speaker. Go, Leafs, go!
The honourable member for Haliburton, Fort the Lakes, Brock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With the melting of snow, my riding has seen a flurry of activity. Congratulations to Lindsay's own Strumbellas for winning a Juno for the song Spirits for Single of the Year. In Haliburton, the Chamber of Commerce held their 11th annual Business and Community Awards Achievement Gala. Congratulations to all award nominees and recipients such as the Pump Shop, Wintergreen, Haliburton Real Estate Team of Remax North Country, Highland Glass and Windows, Community Living, Harcourt Park Marina, and Bonnie View Inn. In addition, the Haliburton County Snowmobile Association won the Warden's Award. Entrepreneur of the Year was presented to Mike McFadden, and Reverend Max Ward was named Highlander of the Year. And finally, to the staff and students of Brock Secondary School, who raised their own funds and traveled to France for the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge. They were one of the largest youth delegations from Canada. We are all very proud of them for ensuring they were at Vimy to commemorate this historic event.
Member for Brampton East.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, Mr. Speaker. Today, Sikhs all around the world are celebrating Vaisakhi. Guru Gobind Singh Ji started the Khalsa Panth in 1699 with the simple philosophy of Naam Japna, meditation, Girt Karni, hard work, Seva, selfless service, and always remembering that we have a responsibility to make the world around us a better place. These aren't just Sikh values, these are Canadian values. This past Monday, we celebrated Vaisakhi on the Hill, and we were proud to show how Sikhs have contributed to Canada for many, many years. And we prayed for the success of all Canadians and our great nation. And in our daily prayer, it read, Okhi kadi na dekhan dehi, apna bird samale. To all his devotees, he does not let them see difficult times. That is his innate nature. Happy Vaisakhi to all Sikhs around the world, and happy Vaisakhi to everybody in this house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, it is with great sadness that I rise today to mark the tragic death on Tuesday of one of the world's greatest HIV/AIDS researchers, Dr. Mark Weinberg. Mark Weinberg was, among other things, the lead investigator at the Lady Davis Institute at the Jewish General Hospital in Montreal, the director of the McGill University AIDS Center, and professor of medicine at McGill.
He's known the world over for his contribution to the identification of lamivudine, an antiviral drug now one of the most widely used in the treatment of HIV. In 2015, he was appointed to the Canadian Medical Hall of Fame.
His work on HIV/AIDS treatment saved millions of lives around the world. He will be remembered as a committed activist in the fight against HIV/AIDS. My heart goes out to his family, his friends, his colleagues, and his many admirers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, the community of St. George in my riding of New Brunswick Southwest is in mourning today. Tuesday afternoon, we were shocked and saddened to learn of the tragic house fire that claimed the lives of 4 people, Esther Boyd and her 3 adult sons. St. George is a tight-knit community, and this loss is felt throughout my riding. I'd like to thank the first responders, including the firefighters from St. George, Blacks Harbour, St. Stephen, and St. Andrews. Thank you to Mayor Crystal Cook and Fire Chief Sean Morton for your leadership. On behalf of myself and my family, I'd like to extend my deepest condolences to the family and all residents of St. George. Please join me in standing to recognize the memory of the Boyd family, the first responders, and the entire St. George community. You are in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today as Vice Chair of the Canada-Armenia Friendship Group to remember the Armenian Genocide of 1915. As we reflect on this tragedy of human history, we are reminded of the importance of protecting and promoting freedom, democracy, and the rule of law, values that we as Canadians value dearly. This first genocide of the 20th century has been recognized by our Senate in 2002, our Parliament in 2004, and by our Conservative government in 2006. The Armenian-Canadian community has contributed positively in so many ways to Canada's culture, economy, and spiritual life. Mr. Speaker, the acknowledgement of the Armenian genocide should motivate each of us to do everything in our power to ensure that such a terrible tragedy never happens again, and to build bridges of mutual respect. As the Armenian community celebrates Easter, I extend to them and to all Canadians my wishes for a happy Easter in the words of one of their esteemed leaders, in the name of our risen and victorious Lord. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary-Skyview.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to convey my best wishes to all those celebrating HoC today in Canada and around the world. HoC is one of the most important days in Sikhism, as it marks the inauguration of the Khalsa and the fundamental principles of the Sikh faith laid down by the 10th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji. All across Canada, at their local gurdwaras and at home with their families, Sikhs will participate in colorful parades, ceremonies and celebrations, and will reflect on those values that embody the heart of our faith: harmony, unity, justice, equality, and service to all mankind. These values, Mr. Speaker, are at the core not only of the Sikhism, but are shared by all Canadians of all walks of life. I encourage to all Canadians to participate in their local HoC festivities and to engage with their local Sikh community in celebrations of our common cause and purpose as Canadians. Happy HoC to all. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today I stand in this House to recognize the most heinous of all crimes, genocide. This House has recognized 6 genocides: the Holocaust, Holodomor, Armenian, Bosnian, Rwandan, and Yazidi genocides. What these genocides have in common is not only their horrors, but that all of them were preventable. As recognized by this House, April is Genocide Remembrance, Condemnation, and Prevention Month. This presents an opportunity to learn about how these atrocities started and how we can prevent their tragic repetition. In order to prevent genocide, we must first recognize its precursors: racism, hatred, exclusion, dehumanization, and demonization. Most importantly, we must never forget the moral imperative to never be indifferent in the face of evil. Mr. Speaker, I stand here to honor all of those who have had their lives cruelly ended by genocide and the survivors whose stories we honor, Their memories must live on.
Bravo.
The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Vaisakhi marks the Sikh New Year and commemorates the formation of Khalsa Pantha warriors under Guru Gobind Singh in 1699. Every year, Sikhs participate in Nagar Kirtan procession, bringing communities together to socialize, share delicious food, and reflect on the teachings of Sikhism. This can be seen today in the GTA, where Guru Gobind Singh Children Foundation is holding a fundraiser for underprivileged kids around the world. Vaisakhi is also a great occasion for us to celebrate the tremendous contributions of the Sikh community to Canada's culturally rich and diverse society. As a Member of Parliament for Markham Unionville, I wish all those celebrating Vaisakhi and joyous celebration. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
The honourable member for Longueuil, Chalamon. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to pay tribute to a social enterprise and a charitable organization that is a true gem in my riding of Longueuil Chalamon. For 25 years now, Surtex has been providing full-time jobs to persons with disabilities by employing them in the largest textile sorting and restoration factory in Quebec. Thanks to their work, more than 6,000 tons of textiles are kept out of landfills every year. Surtex is committed to innovation, and it is also engaged in research and development to find new solutions to further reduce our environmental footprint. Congratulations to Surtex and their team. And on behalf of our community and our planet, thank you.
The
Honourable Member for La Salle-et-Mar.
in sadness today as Canada has lost a giant. Dr. Mark Wainberg passed away tragically yesterday at the age of 71. Professor Wainberg was known for his part in the discovery of the antiviral drug 3TC in 1989, and his work was continuing at both the Jewish General Hospital and the McGill University AIDS Centre.
He courageously brought the entire HIV/AIDS research community to Durban, South Africa, at the height of the crisis in the year 2000, so that the devastation there could be documented firsthand.
AIDS activist because we have to be.
Through his work, Mark Wainberg saved millions of lives around the world. He was an officer of the Order of Canada, an officer of l'Ordre National du Québec, and Chevalier de la Légion d'honneur in France.
I join the Wainberg family, the entire McGill community, all of Quebec and Canada, and indeed all the world, for mourning the loss of a brilliant man who was indeed a mensch. Thank you, Mark.
The honourable member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, last weekend Canadians celebrated the tremendous sacrifice of those who participated in the Allied victory on Vimy Ridge and the many who gave their lives in that battle for our freedom. This week, Christians here in Canada and around the world are remembering and celebrating Easter. During Holy Week, we remember Christ's sacrifice for us by his willingness to die on the cross for our sins and for the sins of the whole world. And on Easter Sunday, we will celebrate Christ's victory over sin and death through his resurrection. As a Canadian and as a Christian, history's examples of individuals laying down their lives for the good of others fills me with a deep gratitude for the freedoms I enjoy as a result of their sacrifice. I wish everyone in this place and back home a happy Easter.
The honourable member for Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, we're in the midst of Cherry Blossom Festival in Vancouver, where more than 40,000 cherry trees are welcoming spring finally into our city. This festival began as a recognition of the 500 cherry trees given to our city by the mayors of Kobe and Yokohama, Japan in the 1930s. Congratulations to founding executive director Linda Poole and her team, who have hosted concerts, workshops, art exhibitions, and fairs under pink-hued cherry tree canopies since 2005. This year, the festival offers over 20 public events, including the plein air blossom painting and Sakura Days Japan Fair at Vancouver at Van Duzen's Botanical Garden and the Cherry Jam downtown at Burrard SkyTrain Station. Visitors can also stroll through the picturesque Natobi Memorial Garden at UBC's Botanical Garden in Vancouver Quadra. In honor of this great yearly tradition, I wish Vancouverites a very happy Cherry Blossom Festival. Let's give spring a very warm welcome back to our city.
Hear, hear.
Honourable Member for Regina Leuven.
Mr. Speaker, this year's federal and provincial budgets threw Saskatchewan under the bus. The provincial budget proposes to eliminate the Saskatchewan Transportation Company, STC, depriving communities of needed bus service with less notice than required by the Canada Labour Code. The federal budget allocates transit funding mostly based on existing ridership, which favors large centres that already have extensive transit systems. Saskatchewan's share of federal transit funding is less than half our share of Canada's population, shortchanging our province by far more than the Sask Party says axing STC will save. I invite all of Saskatchewan's elected representatives to join me in pushing for an equal per capita allocation of federal funding to improve transit in Regina and Saskatoon and to save STC.
The Honourable Member for Barrie-Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, one 96-year-old veteran described it as the best week of his life. This past week, I had the privilege and honor to be part of the Canadian delegation that traveled to Vimy Ridge to celebrate the 100th anniversary of this great battle, where, for the first time, Canadians fought together as one and became a nation. 3,598 of us died that day. 11,000 were wounded. Walter Allward's monument that stands atop the ridge is magnificent. Like well-known sites around the world that people go to for personal or religious pilgrimages, Vimy Ridge and the monument that towers over it is our Canadian pilgrimage site. I want to sincerely thank both past and present Ministers of Veterans Affairs and staff at Veterans Affairs Canada. The Vimy 100 celebration was 7 years in the making, and it was incredible. Incredible, paying tribute to those who died, those who served, and those who continue to serve. Other than marrying my wife and the birth of my 4 children, being at Vimy was the best week of my life.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg South.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday we were proud to welcome Malala Yousafzai to Parliament Hill. We honor her courage as an activist for education and a champion of girls' rights. Canadians believe that the rights of all women and girls are human rights. This year marks the 35th anniversary of Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, in which these fundamental rights are enshrined. I am proud that my city of Winnipeg is home to the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, a place of education and reflection which commemorates both our charter and Malala's inspiring story. As we celebrate this accomplished young woman, now an honorary citizen of our country, we also encourage Canadians to celebrate their charter, which for 35 years has helped us work toward the respectful, inclusive nation that we aspire to be. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions. Questions orales. L'honorable député de Lac.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, when we come back to the House 2 weeks from now, likely countervail duties will have been slapped on our forestry sector. Why? Because of the government's lax approach. It didn't see fit to immediately proceed with what needed to be done to resolve the problem. We've been talking about this for months, and the only certainty people have is that it will impact their jobs. There will likely be job losses across the country. There is still some time. Will the government resolve the softwood lumber issue this week or very shortly? The Honourable Minister.
Very hard, both within the Government of Canada across all departments and also with our provincial counterparts. I've had the pleasure of meeting with ministers, and we keep in touch regularly to make sure that Canada's response is a coordinated one. We understand the importance of the forestry sector to Canada. We understand it's important to make sure that those jobs are protected as best as we can. We're working tirelessly to make sure that that happens.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean.
Speaker, he can talk with the provinces. That's their job to discuss with the USA and to fix it. They transfer that to the province. That's their responsibility to fix it. They don't. That's the problem. That's just a question of leadership. Former Prime Minister Harper have fixed it in 2 months. That's 19 months since they're there. And now they don't have fixed it. That's the truth. Et le problème, Monsieur le Président.
And the problem, Mr. Speaker, the only certainty that forestry sector workers have is that their gas, electricity, hydro costs, everything's going up. The costs are going, but they don't know if they'll have jobs. And why is that? Because the government continues to talk instead of taking action.
Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to inform the member opposite that actually this morning I spent 45 minutes on the phone with Wilbur Ross, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, talking about the softwood lumber issue. We are very closely engaged with the U.S. Now, I also want to say to the member opposite, but also to all Canadians, that while we are actively engaged in negotiations, we are also concerned about supporting our industry in any interim. We will not let the threat of countervailing duties weaken our negotiating position. Nous voulons un bon accord.
We want a good agreement, not just any agreement. The Honourable for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, their rhetoric since the beginning is nothing. They haven't got an agreement on the table. They haven't. These are just words that we're hearing from them. And what they want is to muzzle the opposition. In the past few weeks, they've changed the way of working. Now with this. Well, no, they said they wouldn't be coming forth with those kind of big omnibus bills. They want to muzzle everyone here. But the Liberals are right. They don't want an opposition. They don't want to be contradicted. The PBO must monitor expenditures, must monitor the unkept promises. Will they respect that, Mr. Speaker? The Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, during the election 2015, our government committed to put an end to the use of omnibus bills. The Budget Implementation Act that we tabled contains budgetary measures, nothing else. This is our plan in order to favor equity, to strengthen the middle class by creating jobs and by giving people the skills that they need to succeed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, while the Prime Minister is taking lavish and expensive family vacations at the cost of $133,000 to the Canadian taxpayer, he's at the same time nickel and diming everyday families who want to plan a modest vacation or maybe a long weekend with their loved ones. Passports are going up. Gasoline is going up under this Prime Minister. Uber's going to be going up. Even beer and wine under this Prime Minister is going up. Why is the Prime Minister thinking he is entitled to make Canadian families pay for his excessive spending?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, under the Conservatives, low and middle income Canadians were stuck with the bill for increased costs of government services. For example, drug assessment fees take in every year $45 million less than what it costs the government to assess the drugs. That means that there's a $45 million subsidy every year that Canadian taxpayers fork out for the big drug companies. We believe the big businesses using government services ought to pay their fair share for the cost of those services, and enabling fees to be aligned with inflation will ensure that is the case, Mr.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, at the end of the day, Canadians know it's costing them to pay for all of this Prime Minister's big spending. He's arrogant and entitled Canadians are seeing that. He's also shutting down anybody who opposes or criticizes him. We know he's shutting down the ability of opposition to criticize him. We've now learned that he's neutered the parliamentary budget officer. This Prime Minister clearly has a big problem with accountability and transparency. How long does the Prime Minister think he can keep running and hiding from all of his mistakes? How long does he think he can keep silencing anybody who dares criticize him?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
This Prime Minister is listening and is engaged, and that's why this government has taken unprecedented levels of public consultations. This government is listening to Canadians, responding to the very real challenges that they are facing, and that's exactly what we'll continue to do. Our government is committed to giving more independence to the parliamentary budget officers. Canadians expect their government to be open, transparent, and accountable, and that's exactly what our government is doing. We look forward to the debate on the bill, and we are open to amendments on how to further improve the proposed legislation so that it accomplishes the goal of an independent PBO. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Cowichan, Malahat Langford.
Mr. Speaker, young and racialized Canadians continue to receive charges and criminal records by the thousands for simple possession of marijuana. And yet, this Liberal government refuses to do anything to stop these harmful arrests for at least another 15 months. Criminal records have serious consequences. It makes it harder to get a job, and it makes it almost impossible to travel. What does this Liberal government plan to do to support Canadians who have been convicted of a crime that the Prime Minister himself has admitted to?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Our government is committed to introducing a strict framework that will regulate and restrict access to cannabis in order to keep cannabis out of the hands of children and profits out of the hands of criminals. Decriminalization will not achieve these objectives. Creating a comprehensive and responsible system will take time, but that is necessary to get this right. We look forward to bringing forward comprehensive legislation later today.
Honourable Member for Cowichan, Malahat Langford.
More of the same evasiveness and dodging, Mr. Speaker. Canadians expected immediate action on updating Canada's marijuana laws. And yet, 18 months later, we continue to see cases of Canadians charged and convicted for simple possession. That means that approximately 60,000 Canadians could have criminal records during this government's mandate. A shameful statistic. Will the minister acknowledge this harm? And will she commit to pardoning Canadians who have been convicted of possession of marijuana?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
I'm very pleased to inform the member that he won't have to wait longer for legislation because we are introducing comprehensive legislation later today. Our government has committed to legalize, strictly regulate, and restrict access to cannabis in a careful way to keep it out of the hands of children and youth and to stop criminals from profiting. Canada's current system of controlling cannabis through the criminal justice system does not adequately protect the health and safety of Canadians, especially youth. We look forward to introducing comprehensive legislation today.
La députée de Salaberry.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. What the NDP is calling for is decriminalization and prevention. Some 50,000 arrests for simple possession in Canada in 2015, and that has a disproportionate impact on young people, cultural communities, and Northerners. Many organizations like the Canada Centre for Substance Abuse supports decriminalization or pardons. Even Jean Chrétien and Joe Clark were in agreement with that. In the meantime, will the Liberals stop charging people for simple possession? The Honourable Minister, our government has committed to legalization and to legalizing and restricting access to cannabis in a responsible way in order to keep it away from children and to keep profits away from criminals. We are taking action, and at present, the health and safety of Canadians is not being adequately protected, especially young people. We are very eager to introduce legislation later today in this regard. The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. They don't really answer the questions, Mr. Speaker. They say they want to protect young people from trafficking marijuana, but they're completely omitting to deal with the issue of prevention. And young people are getting criminal records. And Quebec is urging the federal government to assume its responsibilities. $2 million per year for this type of change, the biggest change in many years, is ridiculous. If we compare with Colorado, their budget for young people in 2015 was $45 million. And that for a state with 5 million inhabitants. Will the Prime Minister and Minister for Youth come up with a real transition plan that includes the necessary funds for prevention? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Our government has committed to legalize and to strictly regulate and restrict access to cannabis in a safe way in order to keep it out of the hands of children and to keep profits away from criminals.
Achieve these objectives. Creating a comprehensive and responsible system will take time, but it's necessary to get this right. We are very happy to be introducing comprehensive legislation later today.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Speaker, on the day that the Liberals roll out their marijuana legislation, we learned that the person they handpicked to chair the pot legalization committee has deep ties to the industry. Anne McClellan's firm promotes itself as the go-to advisors to the industry, and at least 12 of its employees stand to make millions from their ownership stake in one of the pot companies. Big surprise. She herself is crisscrossing the country, promoting the Liberal policy and handing out her own business cards. How deep in the grass does all this Liberal cronyism go?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable gentleman wants to attack the integrity of Anne McClellan, good luck.
Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Speaker, I will attack the integrity of Anne McClellan when she and her law firm partners stand to make millions of dollars because they're connected to Parry. Anne McClellan is a former Liberal cabinet minister, and now we know she has close connections to the pot industry. While she was designing the framework for this new system, her legal colleagues were waiting in the wings to make big pot profits. Is this new legislation merely a smokescreen for Liberal cronies to fill their pockets?
Order. The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the clear answer is no. And if the honourable gentleman would like to make those suggestions outside the House, I'm sure Ms. McClellan will meet him in court.
The Honourable Member for Barrie-Innisfil. Order.
The Prime Minister told the House on several occasions yesterday that he will answer questions from the Ethics Commissioner about his trip to Billionaire Island. Every time the Prime Minister stands up and plays a game of political dodgeball in the House of Commons, he undermines his credibility and undermines the legitimacy of this place, Mr. Speaker. Well, I have news for the Prime Minister. He also has a responsibility to answer to Canadians who are represented by every single member in this place. Can the Prime Minister stop dodging, dipping, ducking, and diving and answer this question? Who told him to break the law?
The Honourable Government House Leader. Order.
Prime Minister is answering to Canadians every single day, and that's exactly why this government has taken unprecedented levels of public consultations. We will continue to engage with Canadians. We will continue to respond to the very real challenges that they are facing. And Canadians know that wherever the Prime Minister travels, whether for personal business, he must always be in a position to carry out his official duties. The resources that were provided to him are exactly the same as has been the case with previous Prime Ministers, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister takes his role very seriously. We take the work Canadians need us to do very seriously, and we'll continue to deliver for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
La députée de Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister sought the confidence of Canadian voters 18 months ago, but again today, he's stretching the truth and winging it. I hope that he doesn't think that this Holy Thursday he will be given absolution without confession, Mr. Speaker. Concerning his false statement on the use of the Aga Khan's private helicopter, can the Prime Minister admit the facts and tell the truth? Mr. Speaker, how can the Prime Minister look honest Canadians in the eyes and tell them that he's saying the truth when evidence to the opposite has been provided. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, our government and our Prime Minister will continue to answer to the real challenges facing Canadians. Regardless of where the Prime Minister is, he needs to be in a position to fulfill his official duties as his predecessors did. He is always in contact with his office and constantly receives support during his trips in Canada and abroad, whether the trips be for official or personal reasons.
Bertha Lakes Brock.
Mr. Speaker, transparency, accountability, and sunny ways. This was the Liberal platform. Now, the same government is trying to force through measures that will significantly reduce Canadians' ability to hold these Liberals to account. Is the Prime Minister going to continue standing in this chamber while he orders ministers to do his dirty work? When will the Liberals come clean to Canadians about their shady attempt to dodge accountability?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, exactly as we committed to Canadians, we are delivering on. We had said a more open, more transparent government. That is exactly why we have taken unprecedented levels of public consultations. We will continue to work hard for Canadians because we know that's exactly what will allow us to implement the budget and the investments that we have made, strategic investments to create the conditions of growth that Canadians need us to create jobs, to have a stronger economy, exactly what middle-class Canadians are asking for. We will continue to deliver on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to have a conversation with the Government House Leader. What does an election campaign commitment mean to her? In fact, what did they promise during the election campaign? Small deficits, $10 billion, balanced budget in 2019, major election reform, lower taxes for SMEs. Well, they've shown us that a Liberal promise is an alternative fact. For once, can the government respect its promise of openness and transparency and commit to not changing our rules without the unanimous agreement of all members? The Honourable Government House Leader. During the election campaign, we committed to modernize Canada's Parliament and to adapt it to the 21st century. We are prepared to work with all parties to follow up on the commitment that we made to Canadians. But we will not give the Conservatives a veto over the election commitments we made to Canadians. We know that we can work together. We can all work together. I encourage all members to participate in this work.
The Honourable Member for Esquimalt, Saanich Sooke.
In the last Parliament, Bill C-15, the Strengthening Military Justice Act, was adopted as a first step in reforming Canada's outdated military criminal justice system. This bill received royal assent 4 years ago, and yet 44 sections of the Act are not yet in force. That represents nearly a third of the Act and some of the most important reforms to the system. Mr. Speaker, since justice delayed is often justice denied, can the Minister of National Defence explain to the House what possible excuse there can be for this long delay in reforming Canada's military justice system?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence. Mr. Speaker, the military justice system is extremely important, and D&D and the armed forces are looking carefully at it to improve conditions for all men and women serving in uniform.
For Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, conserving and restoring wild salmon is vital to the future of BC's wild salmon fishery. Yet the minister wants to dismantle the policy for the conservation of wild Pacific salmon. The Liberals have yet to restore the Fisheries Act. They've approved harmful industrial projects. They've even slashed budgets for monitoring salmon. And now they want to gut the wild salmon policy? Simple question for the minister. Is he going ahead with this harmful plan, or will he stand up for British Columbia?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the member's question, and of course I share his concern. The sustainable management of Canada's fisheries is of the utmost importance for our government, and we understand that wild salmon are the lifeblood of the West Coast. Consultations are underway, and the department is engaging with First Nations as well as recreational commercial harvesters that we're finalizing the integrated fisheries management plans. But on top of that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to share that this is the reason why we're putting $197 million over the next 5 years into science to make sure that we can hire more scientists within the Department of Fisheries and Oceans so we can manage these resources properly.
The honourable member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, local officials in Emerson, Manitoba and the media are being denied information regarding the continuing influx of illegal migrants. RCMP and border officials, who only a few weeks ago were providing regular updates about the number of illegal migrants they're intercepting, have now been told to keep silent. Individuals on the ground are saying this gag order came from Ottawa. Will the Prime Minister admit that he is keeping that information from Canadians to cover up his own inaction on this issue?
No, indeed, Mr. Speaker, we have taken steps among CBSA, the RCMP, and the Department of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship to try to comprehensively collect all of the data for the country and to release it in a complete form on a monthly basis. And that information for the last month will be forthcoming in the next number of days.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, that's a very eloquent way of saying we're muzzling the RCMP. So, Mr. Speaker, the public deserves to know how many people are illegally crossing the border into Canada.
How many?
Covering up these numbers won't make the problems go away for the Liberals. So, without these numbers, local officials can't plan to cope with the situation, and the government can't be held to account by us. So, if, as the Liberals claim, there's no problem and there's nothing to see here, why are they telling the RCMP to hide these numbers?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, we are collecting all of the data from all of the departments and agencies of the Government of Canada that are relevant to this situation, and making sure that they are presented publicly, providing more information about the situation than has ever been provided before.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that Liberal cover-up stinks. So I can tell you what also stinks, Mr. Speaker, is the Liberals' response in cutting the danger pay of Canadian troops fighting ISIS, and it's been embarrassing. Conservatives forced the hands of the Liberals in fixing this outrageous decision, but today we learned the Liberals issued a ministerial order that is only returning some of the danger pay for some of our troops. Military families who are no longer receiving this military danger pay are now turning to food banks to get by. Why isn't the Defence Minister standing up for our troops who are being treated just so poorly by these Liberals?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence. Mr. Speaker, we're determined to offer adequate compensation for our armed forces members in the work that they do. As the Minister of National Defence has said on several times, action has been taken. We have recently changed the dates of coming into force for the new danger pay to ensure that members of the armed forces deployed to Kuwait at the time when the amount was reduced will not be affected by this change during their deployment. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou.
They're paid sick at the end of the month.
Mr. Speaker, on April 6th, the member for Gatineau confirmed that he would obtain evidence of the capability gap used to justify the sole source purchase of the 18 Super Hornet fighter jets. He confirmed that D&D would provide me with this evidence. However, on Tuesday at committee, the Liberals have voted down the Conservative motion twice, a motion calling on the Minister of National Defence to provide evidence of the capability gap. The Liberals keep repeating that the gap exists, so how is it that the two ministers on the file can't show or justify the existence of the gap in writing? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Honourable Minister. I guaranteed or assured the Minister of the good news that our government is providing our men and women in uniform with the equipment that they need, equipment that they didn't have during the 9 years of the previous government. These aircraft are required in order to meet operational requirements on an interim basis until the fleet is renewed and replaced as part of a procurement process under an agreement with the United States, Canada, announced policies with respect to these 18 Super Hornets. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hubert.
The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, Le Devoir sounded the alarm. Donald Trump wants to renegotiate NAFTA and get rid of the cultural exemption that's been protecting us for 30 years. This means there'll be nothing protecting our filmmaking, music, and culture from Walt Disney and the Netflix juggernauts. Even Lisa Frula is sounding the alarm, and ADISC says the Heritage Minister's intentions are still unclear. They'd like to know what the federal government's stand is on this. When you negotiate, you have to be clear. We all know that Donald Trump watches TV, and maybe he's watching right now. So will the minister say straight out, so the Americans hear it, the cultural exemption is not negotiable? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his important question and attention to this file. We, of course, recognize the importance of cultural contributions to society, and the NAFTA negotiations have not started, but we are ready for them. I'd like to remind my colleague that cultural diversity is at the heart of my mission, and that is why I'm working nationally and internationally to protect cultural diversity. The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, several organizations in my riding are awaiting funding under the Skills Link program. But indications from the minister's office aren't very encouraging. They can't even speculate about when an answer will be given to groups who filed their applications in July of last year. They're advising those whose projects were to start April 1st to use other funding sources first. What arrogance. These organizations need that funding now. When will the government be in a position to fund these projects?
Secretary.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that these talks are ongoing, that the province and the federal government are in the midst, and we anticipate decisions to be made in the near future. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Oakville North Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of the Status of Women. Like many Canadians, residents from Oakville North Burlington watched with hope and optimism as Malala Yousafzai addressed our Parliament yesterday. Her dedication to girls' education and gender equality through such hardship is a testament not only to her character, but to what all women and girls, men and boys, are capable of. While we recognize it's a long road to ending gender-based violence throughout the world, I would like to know what we here in Canada are doing to end gender-based violence. Thank you.
Honourable Minister of the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague from Oakville North Burlington for her ongoing leadership. Malala's story reminds us of why we need to work together to put an end to gender-based violence. That's why Budget 2017 put aside $100.9 million to do just that. We heard from survivors and experts from across the country, and our gender-based violence strategy is framed by 3 pillars: prevention, support for survivors and their families, and a responsive legal and justice system. Mr. Speaker, Malala is a living reminder of how one girl, one voice can make real change.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the Liberals are trying to sell a flawed Canadian free trade agreement, but Canadians and producers are not buying. It does not eliminate interprovincial trade barriers and subsidies. It is not free trade. In fact, all that our Canadian craft brewers, distillers, and winemakers received from the Liberals was a crippling tax increase. The owner of Whippersnipper Brewery right here in Ottawa said he would be able to create more jobs if he had an open market. But the rules he is so suppressed. Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberals ask the Supreme Court for clarification on Section 121 of the Constitution so we can finally, truly have free trade in Canada?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, landing a new interprovincial trade deal is no small achievement. We congratulate the federal and provincial governments for delivering on their commitment to complete a new free trade agreement as we celebrate our 150th year as a country. You know who said that, Mr. Speaker? Luke Harford, President of Beer Canada.
Oh. Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Mr. Speaker, shippers need to begin negotiating contracts for this fall's harvest.
Unfortunately, they will be doing so in a climate of uncertainty. Once again, the Transport Minister is coming perilously close to allowing key provisions of the Fair Rail for Grain Farmers Act to sunset. These provisions are good for producers and good for our economy. They should be maintained. When will the Minister introduce legislation to make these measures permanent?
Exactly. Honourable Minister of Transport.
I want to reassure my colleague that we've got this in hand. We've been working very hard with the shipping community, the farmers, with the railways in the past year with enormous amounts of consultation. We're very aware of the schedule, and we will be bringing forward modern freight rail legislation quite shortly. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon, Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my province of Saskatchewan, almost 10% of all judicial appointments remain vacant. These vacancies have lingered since the Liberals were elected 18 months ago. The Chief Justice of Saskatchewan has been very clear, and let me quote, "Talk is cheap." We all know there's plenty of qualified candidates to fill these vacancies, yet the Justice Minister continues to stand by as accused murderers and even rapists go free. How many families will be denied justice before this minister finally does her job?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, and I'm very proud to say that the government is walking the walk on this side of the House when it comes to judicial appointments. Our government has implemented an open, transparent, and merit-based appointments process. Since being elected, we have appointed 51 judges, including 22 deputy judges across the country. Under our merit-based appointments process, 60% of the judges named have been women. That's up 35% from the last government. In addition, Budget 2017 provides funding for 28 new judicial positions. We look forward to filling them with great dispatch, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Great news. Honourable Member for Perth Wellington.
And while they dither, criminals go free. But those aren't the only vacancies that are going unfilled. The Chief Electoral Officer, the Lobbying Commissioner, and the Ethics Commissioner, now the Information Commissioner is retiring. And meanwhile, the Prime Minister is under investigation by the Privacy Commissioner, the Acting Commissioner of Lobbying, the Interim Commissioner of Official Languages, and the Acting Ethics Commissioner. Why is the Prime Minister so reluctant to make these appointments? Could it be that he's afraid of permanent oversight officers investigating him? Exactly.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, exactly as we committed to Canadians, we introduced a new merit-based appointment process. These positions that Canadians fill are very important positions, and we take them very seriously. Within our merit-based appointment process, which is more open, transparent, there is diversity taken into consideration. The 2 official languages of our country are taken into consideration. We're looking at gender when we actually make these decisions. It's really important. Most importantly, Mr. Speaker, all positions to apply are available online, and I encourage all Canadians to apply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, my constituents were disappointed in the latest Liberal budget. There's nothing in it for the high-speed train. Meanwhile, the Minister of International Trade would have us believe that he's promoting it. The Minister of Transport keeps saying he's been studying the project since 2015. And the Finance Minister points to his infrastructure bank, which will line his cronies' pockets instead of guaranteeing affordable rates. Everyone from Quebec City to Windsor is asking, does the Liberal train even have a conductor? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my colleague that we're working on this file. In fact, we approved $3.3 million in Budget 2016 specifically to study the matter of a high-frequency train between Windsor and Quebec City. This is a file that we are very busily working on, and when we've completed the study, we'll be able to make a decision. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, 1 month ago, UNESCO warned that Wood Buffalo National Park might be put on the UN's World Heritage in Danger list. This would be an international embarrassment for Canada and for this Liberal government. UNESCO said that the Site C Dam in British Columbia shouldn't go ahead until a proper impact assessment is complete. In response, the Environment Minister said the report is a call to action, but we've had nothing but silence since then. What action will the Minister take to protect Canada's largest national park, and when will she finally take it?
Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member opposite for raising this very important issue. We do consider the UNESCO report a call to action. I met with Wood Buffalo to talk to him about how we can move forward. We understand that we need to be working also with the provinces to find a solution, and we are moving forward right now to do so.
The Honourable Member for Langley Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, a new report reveals that the Prime Minister will take $130 million out of Alberta and BC this year by charging GST on top of their provincial carbon taxes. It's shocking. $130 million in federal taxes, despite the Prime Minister promising that carbon pricing would be revenue neutral for the federal government. Yet another broken promise that'll take more money out of the pockets of hard-working Canadians. Will the Prime Minister stop increasing taxes, keep his promises, and immediately eliminate this unfair tax on a tax?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, I think it's important to consider the actions we've taken on taxes. We lowered taxes on middle-class Canadians as the very first thing that we did. We are committed to tax fairness, and that means we're going to think about Canadian families first. What we're going to do is continue with measures that are going to help families so that we can have a better economy. We know that that works. What we're seeing with the changes that we put in place is that our economy is becoming more resilient. We're seeing more jobs. And behind those jobs are families that are being more successful. This, Mr. Speaker, is what we're working towards in making our economy better.
Honourable Member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are adding bigger deficits and Canadians are being taxed deeper and deeper in debt. The Prime Minister claimed that revenue from his carbon tax will stay in the provinces and territories where it was collected. Yet the GST on carbon tax goes to Ottawa. That's right. When will the Prime Minister get his story straight, come clean with Canadians, and not tax a tax to pay for his out-of-control spending?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, we want to be clear that what we are working towards in all of the efforts that we put forward is improving the lives for middle-class Canadians, making our economy stronger. So as we think about taxes, what we're thinking about is how can we lower the impact on middle-class Canadians so that we can have a more optimistic sense of what they can achieve. That's helping to turn around our economy. We have more jobs being created, and we have a future that looks brighter as a result of the actions that we've taken in this regard in all of our measures.
A member for Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, during the last election, do you remember what the Prime Minister promised? Small, modest deficits.
You can't remember what he promised.
Since then, the Prime Minister has been nickel and diming Canadians by raising taxes and eliminating tax credits. This week, the Liberals tabled 300 pages of billions of dollars of new taxes and user fees on struggling Canadians, including increases for passports, fishing licenses, and permits for small businesses. How much more will these Liberals take out of the pockets of hard-working Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we care about hard-working Canadians. We care about putting Canadians to work. What you can see with the things that we've done is an enormous difference in our country. Over the last year, we have had 286,000 new jobs created in this country, 81% full-time. What I can say to the members across is behind every one of those jobs is a family that's more optimistic, a family that can help their family to be more confident about the future, and that is what's creating the growth in our economy that we need. We are focused on growth, we are focused on making our economy better, and it's working.
The honourable member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, a particularly important sector to my constituents in Alfred Pellan is the growing electric vehicle industry. My constituents want to contribute to our emission reduction goals and protect future generations. Can the Minister of Transport tell Canadians how he plans to further facilitate the use of electric vehicles across the country? The Honourable Minister of Transport. I'd like to thank my colleague for Alfred Pellan for his very good question. Canadians know that a strong economy and a clean environment go hand in hand, and that is why we're working actively to make Canada a leader in the area of green transportation. And in Budget 2017, we announced $120 million to create charging stations for electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, and natural gas vehicles. That's the type of thing that will help us meet our targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, I've had the chance to travel coast to coast across Canada listening to young people, and they've told me that they want real action when it comes to the unemployment crisis they're facing. In the past year, 42,000 full-time youth jobs have been lost in this country. Instead of providing incentives to employers to create new jobs, however, Budget 2017 only provided money or incentives for existing jobs. Will the Minister of Youth finally listen to Canada's young people and quit attacking innovative employers who want to create new jobs, and will they equip them as the best equipped individuals in this country to give Canada's youth a second chance?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Employment.
Speaker, that's exactly what we're doing as a government. We're equipping the youth for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow, providing those opportunities in skills training, in apprenticeship, access to post-secondary education, co-op placements, work-integrated learning opportunities, and summer jobs, doubling the number of summer jobs that went 10 years under the last government without any investment. We're getting the job done for young Canadians.
The honourable member for Brampton North.
Mr. Speaker, although many people may have overlooked it, Budget 2017 announced changes to the GST treatment of ride-sharing services. Could the Minister of Finance share the rationale behind this decision?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to first thank the member from Brampton North for her question. As this House knows, we are focused on tax fairness for Canadians. We know that as the economy changes, we need to make sure that our tax system stays up to date. That's why in Budget 2017, we made sure that ride-sharing services and taxi services were at a level playing field. They both were subject to GST, HST, because that's the fair way to deal with this system.
Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, this week I introduced Bill C-350, a bill identical to Bill C-561 put forward by former Liberal Justice Minister Irwin Cotler. This is good, nonpartisan legislation to combat forced organ harvesting, people being killed and having their organs taken. Will the Liberals do the right thing, regardless of the opinion of the Chinese government, and support this life-saving bill?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to commend my honourable colleague across the aisle for introducing the legislation. Of course, this government stands against harvesting of organs, and we look forward to studying this bill when it goes to committee and receiving a report back. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Verchères, Les Patriotes. Mr. Speaker, Quebec suppliers are already reeling from Lowe's takeover of Rona. Some have lost over 20% of their sales. It's dramatic. The Minister of Economic Development had the power to set conditions, but didn't. He had a duty to assess the net benefits of the transaction, but didn't. Instead, he rubber-stamped it. Mr. Speaker, we're talking about Quebec suppliers and Quebec jobs. Will the Minister of Economic Development finally admit he didn't do his job on the Rona file? The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, we make sure that when we're looking at the file that we did the proper net economic benefit examination. And based on that, we were able to secure good quality jobs here in Canada, particularly in senior management positions. We were also able to secure the head office in Boucherville. And more importantly, this transaction will allow the company to be able to tap into global supply chains as well. This is good for Quebec, this is good for the economy, and this is good for job security, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Joliette.
Honourable member for Joliette. That's not what we're seeing, Mr. Speaker. With its mammoth omnibus bills, this government keeps breaking its promises. Last fall, it was Bill C-29. The government pulled a fast one on us. They shielded the banks from Quebec's consumer protection law. It was so well hidden that nobody noticed, except the Bloc Québécois. That was a close call. This spring, it's Bill C-44, and it's half again as big as C-29. This time round, where's the hidden catch?
Dans la ministre des Finances.
Donald, Minister of Finance. Our budget will improve the situation of the middle class and will boost our economy. The steps taken in our budget will improve things. That's our approach. That's the way to improve things for our economy now. Donald, member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, in a few minutes, the Liberal government is going to table its legislation to legalize marijuana. This will have more of an impact on the Quebec government than on the federal government. There are issues of public health, safety, education, economic development, agriculture, just to name a few. There's a whole host of issues that do not concern Ottawa. Will the government promise not to use marijuana as a way to encroach on Quebec's jurisdiction? The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, in recent months, I've been working closely with my counterparts, the health ministers. We've discussed a number of issues. We discussed legalizing cannabis, and we will continue to work hard together in a spirit of cooperation to protect the health and safety of Canadians.
Member for Nunavut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Public Services and Procurement. On February 16, 2017, a letter signed by all Indigenous members of Parliament was received by the Minister requesting that the name of Langevin Block be changed. This request was made because we believe that the building that houses the Prime Minister's office should not be named after a key architect of the devastating Indian residential school system. Could the Minister provide the House with an update as to the status of this request? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Well, Mr. Speaker, indeed the Minister did receive the letter, and I thank the member from Nunavut and his colleagues for their advocacy. As our government has said, there is no relationship more important to our government than the one with Indigenous peoples. Our government is fully committed to implementing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls for action, and this includes developing a reconciliation framework for Canadian heritage and commemoration, and any decision on this issue will be made, of course, in full partnership with Indigenous peoples.
This will conclude question period for today. I notice of a point of order, the Honourable Member for Langley Aldergrove.
Mr. Speaker, I have a report from the Library of Parliament that I would seek unanimous consent to table. It's a report that clearly shows that the carbon tax is not federally revenue neutral.
Does the Honourable Member for Langley Aldergrove have unanimous consent of the House to table this document? I'm not seeing any consent. Another point of order. The Honourable Member for Provencher on another point of order.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order today. Earlier today during question period, when we questioned the Minister about the gag order placed on the RCMP and the CBSA and the Prime Minister's inaction on the issue of illegal migrants, the Minister of Public Safety referenced a report that would provide data that the RCMP and CBSA officials have been compiling. And I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, I know you couldn't